I'm coming to you today with a bit of breaking news here from my hotel room in Las Vegas. I'm here for CES 2024, and even though I'm here for this awesome event, that does not stop news from happening, and that's what I'm bringing you today. Now, the Model 3 did recently have a refresh. Project Highland, as it was called, it launched in Europe, and ever since then, we've been waiting for timing on when we'll see that here in the United States or North America in general. And I pretty much told you guys it was going to be the beginning of the year before we saw it because the Model 3 was going to lose tax credits. And sure enough, it finally is appearing on Tesla's website. And we're going to go through all the details because there's a lot to really dissect here. Pricing, range, what are you going to get with the refresh Model 3? Is it worth it getting the refresh Model 3? And then also, let's talk about this weird situation with the existing inventory that's out there because there are quite a few Model 3s out there under the old platform. So those are kind of obsolete, so to speak, or maybe not so much. We're going to dive into all of that in today's video, so make sure you stick around to the end. There's a lot to talk about and a lot to dig into. As we look at Tesla's website, we can see the Model 3 is nicely displayed here on the front page. It is now once again at the top of the list. When you go to Tesla's website, we can see a bit of the new design here featured with the new front fascia. You can see the new wheels, even though they're in motion, but we'll get into all of that here momentarily. So first, we're going to start with the stats here. So the rear-wheel drive comes in at $38,990, which is the same price it was before. Comes in with 272 miles of range, which is the same as it was before, and 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds, which again is the same as it was before. Now, as soon as we switch the wheels to what are called the Nova wheels, so no longer the Sport wheels, but the Nova wheels, you actually dropped down to 248 miles, and previously the drop was down to 267, so an additional 19 miles of range loss with these Nova wheels versus the Sport wheels that were previously on the Model 3. And when we switch over to the long range all-wheel drive, we're looking at 45,990, which is the same as before. 341 miles, which is 8 additional miles compared to what it was previously, and a 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, which is the same as it was before. Now, just like the rear-wheel drive, when we change over to the Nova wheels, we drop down to 305 miles, which is an additional 10 miles of range loss compared to the Sport wheels on the previous version of the Model 3. So definitely a bigger hit, but it's not a surprise because new certifications were not done for all of the Model 3s in the previous generation, so this would be under those new guidelines from the EPA. But the good news is whether you get the rear-wheel drive or the long range, the Sport wheels or the regular Aero wheels, you are looking at the same price, and that's the first thing that's most important. Price did not go up, which it wasn't expected to do. The other thing I want to point out here, January to February delivery date on both configurations, which means they are ready to start shipping these things like now. It is already the 10th, so if anybody was going to take delivery in January, they would have to ship these from Fremont here in the next couple of days or so to get them across the country. So these are already in production is what that would suggest. Now, when we look down, we also finally have the new colors in the Model 3, which we just recently got in the Model Y. So Stealth Gray and Ultra Red are now available in the Model 3, which is fantastic. These two new colors are amazing, and the Stealth Gray continues to be the included color, which is pretty awesome. Taking a closer look at these Nova wheels, they are very similar or inspired by the Sport wheels, but you can also start to see a bit of the design cues that we saw from the Model X and Model S Aero wheels. So a nice cross between the two, and it's actually a really nice size. The 19s have always been a good size on the Model 3, so a decent upgrade to consider there. Now, when we look at the inside, this is where things start to really change in what we're looking at. Most of the changes are actually inside the car. So first thing you'll notice, there's no stalks here around the steering wheel. So you don't have a turn signal stalk, you don't have a gear selector stalk. The gear is going to be selected on the screen or automatically, and the turn signals are on the left side of the steering wheel. Now, some good news here, Tesla has moved the horn back to the center of the steering wheel, so it's a traditional horn, thank goodness. So now the only inconvenience in my experience with our Model X would be the turn signals. You kind of get used to them, but it's still silly. a turn signal stock would be much appreciated. But the gears, not a problem at all. The horn being right back where it is, perfect, just those turn signals. Now, some of the other things you're going to notice, with the black interior, you can see a little bit here, but we have different materials on the inside, on the door cards, and on the dashboard. Now, when we switch over to white, you can see it actually is a completely different material. So we have some new materials on the inside. You can also very clearly see the ambient lighting, which is pretty cool. The thing you cannot see, however, on these pictures is the seats are now ventilated, which is awesome. So finally, they are here in the Model 3. Also, we can see an updated center console. So it looks like they added a door where the cup holders are. So that is a nice feature added. And then here on the A-pillar, you'll actually have a little light indicator, kind of your blind spot monitor, so that's been added as well. And as we continue to look at these new features on the inside, we can cycle through here and we can see a rear screen is now in the Model 3, which is fantastic, especially if you have kids. This is really nice to have streaming videos in the back seat, keeping the kids happy. We now have 17 speakers in the long-range all-wheel drive. It is only 9 speakers, however, in the rear-wheel drive with no subwoofer. And on the 17 speaker setup, you do actually get 2 subwoofers. So the sound system has never been an issue in the Tesla. It's fantastic and even better. Another thing to note about sound is there's now insulated windows all the way around the car. So you have that dual pane glass on all the doors, and they've upgraded the other window. So the sound inside of it has definitely gotten better in this car. That topped with some of the new materials to help dampen some sounds as well. So it should be a pretty quiet ride on the inside. And everything else is pretty much the same on the inside that you're going to see here. You get a new headlight, new front bumper, new rear bumper, and then you get some new features on the inside, but generally very similar to what we've seen in the past, just a few different materials. Now, I want to pivot over to inventory, because this is basically the point where we say, all right, what happens with the rest of these cars that are sitting on lots across the country that are now considered the old design? Well, I pulled up all of these and looked for the best price on each trim that I could find in inventory, at least in my area. And starting with the Model 3 rear-wheel drive, the best deal out there is $35,090. And looking at the long-range all-wheel drive, $42,740. And the performance, $47,240. Now keep in mind, the performance Model 3 does qualify for the $7,500 tax credit. The long range and the rear wheel drive do not qualify for that tax credit. So another really weird situation where the performance is actually cheaper than the long range Model 3, at least for what's in inventory. Also, another note, you may have noticed there's not a performance version of the new refresh Model 3 available, and that is expected to come soon. We don't know exactly what the holdup is, but it's not available right now. So it's going to be some time before you can even get another performance Model 3. So if it's something you want, this may be a limited time where whatever's left is all that's going to be available for a bit of time. Moving over to the Model Y, a very similar situation, again excluding demo models. The cheapest rear-wheel drive Model Y, $40,490. The long-range all-wheel drive, $45,070, and the performance, $48,140. Now, why is this important? So basically, with these prices, the reason why this is important because the point of sale tax credit has not yet started for Tesla, and I know that they're working on it. They're communicating all kinds of different things to people, but it's coming. It will be coming soon. And depending on your local delivery center, it sounds like you're getting different levels of, I guess, pressure to take delivery of your car or forfeit the $250. So a lot of people, that's not an issue, but some people have started reporting that their delivery advisor is telling them they have to take delivery now, or they will be canceled and they'll lose their $250. So something to be aware of, but in this period of time, these discounts allow you to lock in a discounted price before the tax credits become point of sale, which should be any day now. So once they do become point of sale, it is expected that these discounts will go away completely, certainly for the Model 3 now that we have a refreshed Model 3. So these discounts are going to be going away essentially once that point of sale tax credit becomes effective. So for this short period of time, you can roll the dice for $250 and lock in a price at a discount, because it's going to go away as soon as that point of sale tax credit comes into place. But the other thing to consider here, the Model 3 rear-wheel drive and the Model 3 long range do not qualify for a tax credit. Everything else does, and it qualifies for the full $7,500. So really, when we combine that $7,500 with the existing discount, at least in my area of what's available, you can start to see how big these savings are, and they can really start to stack up. So $3,900, $4,750 for the rear-wheel drive and long-range Model 3, but then we're talking $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 for the Performance Model 3 and all Model Ys. Huge discounts when you add in that tax credit. And again, if it does become point of sale and this discount's already locked in, this is going to be huge, because you'll be able to get a rear-wheel drive Model 3 for $32,990, of course, plus delivery, tax and title and those things. $37,500 for a long-range Model Y, and about $40,000 for a performance Model Y, which is crazy, and $39,740 for a performance Model 3. This has got to be the fastest car in this price. Nothing can touch it for under $40,000. This is just an crazy, incredible deal for the Model 3 Performance, in my opinion. But because of these tax credits, take a look at this. This is where things get really interesting, because when we look at the Model 3 compared to the Model Y, it's actually cheaper to get a Model Y in almost every situation. It's actually $900 more to get a Performance Model Y than a Performance Model 3, which is really not that much money. But everything else is thousands less to get that Model Y. That's how big and important these tax credits are, which is very interesting that this is happening right now. So something to really wrap your head around if you're considering getting a new Tesla. How do these stack up, and does this make the most sense for me? So the great news is we finally have Project Highland, or the refresh Model 3, here in North America. Very excited about this, and it looks like shipments should be imminent. So customers are going to start getting these like really quick. And the great news is there's not a huge line like the Cybertruck where you're going to have to wait months, but you could order this right now and I guess get this car in a couple of weeks, which is pretty awesome. But this car is going to be so nice. It's going to be a nice refresh. It's been 6 years since the Model 3 was officially launched. So this is a nice upgrade, a nice refresh to that vehicle that changed everything in electric vehicles. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to catch you on the next one.